What's good, Raider fans? Welcome back to Vegas Nation. First and 10, your bi-weekly go-to for news and analysis on the Raiders, and in today's case, game analysis, and it was the season finale. Of course, I'm Vinny Bonsignore with Vegas Nation. This is Adam Hill with Vegas Nation as well, Las Vegas Review-Journal. And Adam, we go back all the way to OTAs and rookie minicamp and Costa Mesa. It feels like a long season.
Yeah.
It came to an end today, and certainly not in any way, shape, or form that the Raiders drew up. They finished the season 4-13. But I got to say, going back to everything that I just mentioned, training camp, OTAs, I think we felt, everyone that saw the Raiders during those stages, that this was going to be a struggle this year, especially offensively. And this is an offensive league. You're not going to win games if you can't score points. And that was been the prevailing case for the Raiders, on top of maybe some coaching errors, an inability to hold on to the ball, injuries to the defense that kind of wiped out what their blueprint was for this defense. It just kind of all built up for the Raiders, and we saw it firsthand today. The Raiders came in with a 2-game winning streak, but it was fool's gold. We all can acknowledge that. A hapless Jacksonville Jaguars team, a hapless New Orleans Saints teams, both of them playing without their starting quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks. This was a real test to kind of gauge where the Raiders are, and I think the way the Chargers sort of dropped a hammer on them, it's glaring how wide that gulf is between the Raiders and the best teams in their division, and the Chargers aren't even the best team in their division.
Yeah, an 0-6 season in the division for the Raiders. That's not certainly what you want. And when you look around the division, you saw it today with the Chargers. They have Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
First year in the division, first year back in the NFL, but he takes them to the playoffs because he has his guy in Justin Herbert. And it's not necessarily that you have a great quarterback. It's kind of that pairing of coach and quarterback that works together, like we've seen in Denver, where I don't think Bo Nix goes on most teams and has a very successful season, but everything was in place for the Broncos to take that step forward. They've got Sean Payton there. They're a great match. They go forward to win, and obviously we know what Mahomes and Reed have in Kansas City. And when you look at that division, it's just going to be such a long crawl up for the Raiders. Now, I know there was a lot of optimism from people in camp. Oh, the defense could be elite, which they were close to being really good.
Had a chance to be.
The Broncos might not be great yet, which they might not have been, and then they were. Like, there were some things that could have fallen their way that the Raiders could have had a more successful season. I think most people expected, especially most people around the team, expected to go over that season win total, which was set at 6 in the sports books. Most people, I think, when you asked, would say, yeah, that's going to be over. They're going to win more than 6 games. But in the end, couldn't even get to the 5 that they could have gotten to by winning today. In the end, that means for a good draft pick and everything else we can talk about during the offseason. But, I think overall a disappointing season, but one that probably the expectations from some people were a little too high. This is about what this team was, and everything needed to go perfect for them to do much better, and everything did not go perfect.
No, it didn't, and you bring up a really good point. Bo Nix on any other team other than with Sean Payton as the head coach, right? And I want to start there because obviously, and we're taping this right after the game, or a couple hours, I guess, by now after the game. A lot of uncertainty with Antonio Pierce's job. I asked him directly, about clarity, and somebody else asked him about does he deserve a second chance or another shot next year. And
by the end of this podcast, he might
could
not
be.
have a
Yeah,
job.
exactly. His whole thing was no comment.
Yeah.
Like, he's not touching any of that, and we'll find out sooner rather than later, I'm sure, what his fate truly is. But where I was going with that is, you can make the argument, well, nobody would have won with this caliber of quarterback. And I would sit here and say, do I think that Aiden O'Connell is as good as Bo Nix? No. But I don't think that's the widest gap of all time either. And you look at somebody like Sean Payton, who was able to figure it out with a quarterback like Bo Nix, who I think is the third best quarterback in this division. I think that's safe to say, right?
Yeah.
But, they've done pretty nice things with that tandem right there. And so I guess my point is it just easy to say, well, who would have done anything better with the Raiders than what Antonio Pierce did, considering their quarterback situation? I tend to think, well, I don't think that's just a given that no one else could have done better with this team.
Yeah, I think what I said, and I know you were out sick when we did the pregame podcast this week when I was talking to Ed. I said, if you believe Antonio Pierce was the right coach for the job going into this season, you probably should feel the same way now. Like,
Right.
nothing changed. Antonio Pierce is now what he was before the season.
Right.
Now, I am of the opinion he never should have gotten the job. I didn't think he should have gotten the job
Right.
last year, and I'm still in that same boat. But I don't know what you could have possibly seen during this season to change your mind. Right? Like, if you thought he deserved the job, you thought he deserved the job with a less than stellar roster, with a quarterback problem and all these other things. So what has changed? Like, it's the same as it was before the year.
Let me get this clear, because I think there's a lot of people who felt like he deserved the job that are now rethinking that.
Yeah, and I question those people.
You question why they would.
Yeah, I want to know what has changed. What has changed in somebody's mind to think he deserved the job?
Of those who thought that he deserved the job.
Yeah, if you thought he deserved the job, what's different now? Nothing is different. They had the season that on paper was expected.
I think they were believing
that he could make everything better.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, why? Because he made something that looked really bad last year better. I mean, you could argue how much better. It was 5-4, but the fact is, it was better, right? My question all along was, or my concern all along, and I remember going through this back in my day in Los Angeles, and USC fires Lane Kiffin, and they bring in the guy that ended up winning the national championship with LSU.
Orgeron?
Yeah, Ed Orgeron takes over on an interim basis, okay? And they go on some kind of a run, and everyone's screaming that Ed should get the job. And I kept writing, don't get caught up in the moment here, because, I always had concerns about Ed Orgeron, not only as maybe a head coach, but also somebody that might get you in a little trouble,
sure.
Right? Some of the things that he did. But I felt like, and that's why I'm not a proponent of firing a coach mid-season, especially when there's questions of how good is the team really. Is this going to get you to the playoffs? And I never thought that was the case with Antonio Pierce with the Raiders. They had fallen far enough out of the race that I didn't think that was even possible necessarily. But my point is, like, you get caught up in the moment sometimes, and I felt like the fans, I felt like the alumni, the people in the building, and mostly Mark Davis and some of the players got caught up in the moment. So I was always suspicious that he should have been the head coach. I understand why they did it, because 5-4 looked a lot better than 3-5 or whatever it was when they fired Josh McDaniels. So, but that's the position that you sometimes put yourself into, where there's a little bit of surge of momentum, and then all of a sudden somebody that who probably shouldn't be the head coach gets the coaching job just because of that little momentum that they caught. Even though it wasn't overwhelming, it was just enough that was better than what was happening before, that it gave people false hope.
Yeah, and that's the job of the organization to make sure that doesn't happen. And by the way, that's why this organization is what it is. Like, let's face it, it's been 2 decades since they've had any kind of actual success, and it's because of these things. Now, I think part of what you're looking at, and I was actually talking to a couple players just about this in the locker room, is like, you need to find consistency at some point.
Yes.
Like, at some point, there has to be consistency. Aiden O'Connell has had 4 offensive coordinators in 2 seasons as a quarterback. This will be if they did fire Antonio Pierce and get a new coach, this will be their fourth or fifth coach since they've been in Las Vegas. You can't keep doing that.
Right.
Like, you can't. But you also can't stick with something that's not working.
More along
like, you have to at some point find the right situation and then find some continuity. And you look at a team like the Lions, who, as we're recording this, are playing right now. Dan Campbell was terrible in terms of record his first year.
But
they stuck with him.
Well, they
were 1-10 to start his career, right? And they were like, okay,
really bad.
He has something. Let's stick with him. But it could have gone the other way. He could have continued to be bad, and that could have been the wrong decision. But they decided to stick with him because they wanted some continuity. They felt like he could figure things out, and he did. But you can't have continuity just for the sake of continuity. It has to be the right situation to start that process of building something consistent. And at this point, I mean, it's a really tough decision. What you really don't want to do as an organization is to move on and not go anywhere, not improve, not get a better coach, and then kind of be in the same situation again. But you also don't want to stick with Antonio Pierce another year and then find out that that's the wrong decision. It's tough.
It's really interesting because this is just a little bit off on a different tangent, but I think Mark Davis truly felt like he had the continuity that he was building with John Gruden, who was the guy that he always wanted to be the head coach of this team. that rug got pulled out from under his feet.
Yeah.
Midstream, just as they thought that they were headed in the right direction. You can argue about some of the draft picks, and those are valid arguments. Although I'll contend that the 2021 draft turned out to be pretty darn good, with Trayvon Merrick and Divine Diablo and Nate Hobbs. 2020 was horrible. 2021 not so bad, outside of Alex Leatherwood. But be that as it may, when you think about what this organization, you talk about the continuity. I think Mark Davis felt like, I got continuity.
Yeah.
It's John Gruden, and all of a sudden,
contract.
A sucker punch comes out of nowhere. And think of what that cost them. Number one, it's cost Mark Davis a lot of money.
Yeah.
He had to pay off John Gruden. He's now had to pay off a head coach, maybe a second head coach, and
general manager,
a general manager, right? And Dave Ziegler and probably Mike Mack. I don't know what his contract was at the end of that time. So yes, this organization's where it is because of decisions that have been made. But there is kind of an argument to be made that if that had not happened, where would they be right now? I don't really know the answer to that question, but probably better off than where they are right now.
Probably. Most likely. You can't say for sure, but most likely. Now, here's the really tough part, because if you are, whether you stick with Antonio Pierce or not.
Right.
And if you're watching this, before you hear it, what I'm telling you right now, they are most likely of finishing last place again next year.
Right.
Most likely they're going to finish last, no matter who the coach is.
Right.
And so you have to, again, if it is Antonio Pierce coming back for next year, understand that he's probably going to finish last again, and understand that you're going to have to stick with him again, most likely, because you're trying to build that and go forward. And if you do bring in a new coach, he's probably going to finish in last place. So at that point, then you have to say, okay, we're going to be prepared for a coach to come in and finish last. And I know that sucks to hear, but that's kind of the situation that they're in.
Well, I think if they confront that honestly, it's not as bad. And part of that also is,
I was going to drop in a little bit of silver lining.
Silver lining.
The schedule sucks next year.
Well,
that's terrible. Even though they're probably the worst team in the division going into next year, they do have a chance to climb out based on the schedule. But you never know what's going to happen with a lot of the offseason changes.
That's true, too. And the Denver Broncos or the Chargers were the last place team last year, right? Yeah, because they drafted ahead of both of them were ahead of the Raiders.
Yeah.
But the Chargers had the So I mean, you can make a case that the Chargers, it was a combination of a really good coach in Jim Harbaugh, a favorable schedule, playing the last place schedule. But yeah, you're right about that. That could create. I mean, and winning breeds momentum and all that. But let's get back to, let's actually really quick. We're going to go to a quick break. We're going to hear from Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders' second-year quarterback. Take it away, Aiden.
Jacoby mentioned that AP kept his team together through all the ups and downs throughout the course of the season. How did he do that?
It's hard, again, he's the guy that's got to get up there every day and talk to us and, continue to try to motivate us. But I think, he did a great job of that and really tried to speak to the guys that, want to continue to fight. And obviously we had a long skid there. We didn't win a game, but guys continue to show up to work and do the right things and just try to chip away.
How proud were you of your teammates that were able to stick together like that and not give up even though it was a bad skid?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think there's what I'm definitely learning now. It's the end of my second year. There's no wasted years in the NFL, even if you don't, win as many games as you hope to or play as well as you hope to. I think, it's awesome just to build relationships, obviously with coaches and with my other teammates. And so, yeah, I'll definitely remember this year. It's definitely a trying year, but I think those years you learn to appreciate down the road. So I know I'll look back and appreciate this year.
Aiden, what was your main takeaway from this season, and how do you take whatever that is into next season and kind of look ahead?
Yeah, I think, it's just an up and down year for myself personally and, a hard year for our team. And so, like I said before, just trying to be grateful, not take things for granted. And when I'm on the field, understand how really priceless those reps are and just try to take every rep like it's my last. And so, it was difficult to be in and out like that. But, I'm just, like we were talking about before, grateful for my teammates for having my back and us getting to win some games here down the stretch.
Coach also said you kind of matured into a leader this year, and you were more outspoken about what you wanted to stand up for with this team. How did you kind of see that progression for yourself throughout the year?
Yeah, I think there's just a natural maturing that happens as you get older in the NFL. And like I said, I'm now done with my second year, and you just see things differently than you did when you first came in the league. And so, I think it speaks to my teammates and just trying to build the relationships with those guys. And I think more than anything, I want them to respect me and respect the work, and I just try to put my best foot forward every day to do that.
All right, there's Aiden O'Connell, and I'm glad we heard from the Raiders quarterback, because I think Antonio Pierce he didn't come out and actually say it, but he said it without saying it, that I had asked him, 4-13, all the teams in your division are going in the playoffs. How far off do you feel like you really are? And he but he said, I think, basically he said there's a glaring need on this team, and everybody knows what it is. He didn't say quarterback, but that's obviously what he was talking about.
Could have been talking about head coach, but I don't think he would have.
Right.
I don't think he would have said that about
because that's 1A and 1B for me. They're both equally important, but there's no doubt. You saw what Justin Herbert did tonight. Making plays with his legs. He got a touchdown taken away from him on a holding call. That was a brilliant play that he made on that touchdown throw as well. He ran for gain a big gain on a run. He's just a superior quarterback than what the Raiders have, and at some point they're going to have to get that addressed. When is that?
I mean, you would think it was this year, but you never know. Now, again, if we're going to look at silver linings potentially, this is good and bad. The momentum is starting to build that there's not a team that's going to draft a quarterback in the top 5, because there's not a quarterback worthy of going in the top 5. So you may have your choice of quarterback still at number 6, where you're going to be drafting. You may still be able to get the guy that you want. Now, is that a good thing that he falls to you, or is that a bad thing that everybody else?
I think you got to take the quarterback.
Potentially. But again, like we're talking about continuity, you can't get stuck drafting the wrong one. I mean, now you're in a terrible spot.
Understood. But I know, but I still think you do. You take your swing, and you create some hope maybe with your fan base, and because I think, and we're talking about Cam Ward, we're talking about Shedeur Sanders. I think both of them are better than what they have.
Maybe.
That's
maybe. I don't think it's a sure thing, and I'm not. Look, last week we argued about Aiden O'Connell. I think you were pro and I was against, and I think we're switching.
I'm not necessarily
pro. I think we're switching to this. I'm saying I don't know if Aiden O'Connell is necessarily.
You guys don't understand what it took for Adam just to say that. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. I never thought I'd live to hear that, because and look, this is big boy football. It's the NFL, and Adam has been brutally honest about Aiden O'Connell. Sure. You have to be. I mean, what do you this isn't about feelings or anything like that. You're trying to win a Super Bowl, and the fact of the matter is you don't have a Super Bowl quarterback right now. And trying to get one is obviously extremely difficult. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. I don't know.
I am fascinated by the rumors out there that there are teams trying to trade for Kevin O'Connell. Now, that is intriguing. Kevin O'Connell, for those that don't know, coach of the Vikings, probably winning coach of the year, is going into the last year of his contract, has kind of, I think, expressed behind the scenes, okay, let's get this done.
Right.
And I think the Vikings will.
Yeah.
But if teams are apparently reaching out and making offers, I don't know, if you were to say your next 3 firsts and 2 seconds for Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy, would you do it if you're the Raiders?
Oh, that's a lot.
It's a lot. But if you were looking and saying we need our coach-quarterback combination, what if that's it?
One more time?
Your next 3 firsts.
Next 3 firsts.
And 2 seconds.
In consecutive years?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to think about that one for a second. I mean, I obviously J.J. McCarthy and or the potential of J.J. McCarthy,
yeah,
and what we know of Kevin O'Connell, that would be pretty alluring around here. But that's also a ton to give up for somebody. So, all right, so let's just bottom line this real quick. Short of Kevin O'Connell becoming the next head coach, or Mike Vrabel, or Liam Cohen from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, gut feeling on what we're going to hear this week about Antonio Pierce?
I think he's gone. Okay. But, I mean, that's just – it's like 52-48 almost.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I have heard completely differing.
Yeah.
It's 50-50 basically.
Yeah.
It's 50-50, 52-48, whatever you want to call it. But there are some people that I talk to that he's gone, and there are other people who no, I think he's going to be safe for one more year, and that's the God's honest truth right there. So I can't call it, and I've never really been. This is like a first almost.
Yeah, my read from people that I know we talked to different people in the organization is that they really were undecided as of this morning, and they wanted to see something today. And you could say whether you did or not. I had mentioned to somebody, I said, well, if you wanted to see the team, come out and play well and be competitive, I guess you didn't get what you wanted, and he's going to be fired. And they said, that wasn't a blowout. And I said, oh, okay. I mean, I guess you can make the argument either way you want. They were down 21 points until a garbage time touchdown. I didn't think it was particularly close.
No,
but
they were in command the entire game.
But it was, it was 10-9. They were ahead late in the second quarter, and then a really bad interception, which I think was, the play that really stands out as why isn't Aiden O'Connell, potentially the future quarterback of the team? Like, plays like that. Like, when you start to try to get aggressive with him, oftentimes it's like, okay, move the chains, there's the mistake.
Right.
And it just, I know it's only second year and he hasn't, played all the way through. He's had injuries and he's had time on the bench and all those other things, but like those are the red flag plays that you see out of him. And I think that you just look at that situation and say, okay, they played well for a half. That play kind of turned everything, and the Chargers, kind of blew them out from there. So if you were saying this decision is based on this game, but it's not.
Shouldn't be.
But if you're saying it's based on this game, I would say you probably don't bring Antonio Pierce back.
Right.
But even on that, there's differing opinions.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a fascinating next, I would say, 48 hours, maybe a little bit sooner than. Well, it'll be a fascinating 48 hours. But what we're talking about could happen within the next 24 hours. I can't imagine that it's going to link one way or another.
Well, Antonio Pierce is scheduled to speak, I think, at 11 a.m.
Yes.
tomorrow. That's Monday. We're talking on Sunday night. I can't imagine a scenario where they'd have him speak and then fire him. I guess they possibly could, but I have to imagine that they would tell him if he were to be fired, they would tell him before. And if he does speak, then he's probably coming back. That's not a guarantee, but I think that's probably something to watch for.
Well, if you're Antonio Pierce, don't you go to somebody and say, "Look, I'm not going out there."
Right? Yeah, of course.
Unless one way or another.
If I'm his agent,
Yeah.
I'm calling and saying he's not going out there unless he's
given full clearance.
Of course, absolutely.
Well, that is a story for another few hours. It's getting late tonight,
some rest,
Sunday night.
Raiders
Exactly.
fans.
We'll have it all for you, won't we? Over at Vegas Nation, whether we're writing about it or talking about it or however you digest the information, we've got you covered at Vegas Nation. By the way, I want to say thank you to the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Station Casinos STN Sports for their great support. I want to say thanks to Heidi Fang, our producer. Adam Hill always does a fantastic job. We'll be with you every step of the way, and I would get up bright and early tomorrow because you never know what might happen in the wee small hours of the morning. We've all seen that one go down before as well. But I do think we're probably, maybe, going to get some word tomorrow.
One way or the other.
Yeah, we'll see. Until then, thank you for all the support. Thanks for watching. I know it's been a long year. Thank you for staying with us every step of the way. Maybe brighter days are ahead. Who knows? We'll see. But first and foremost, I think the Raiders got to get their coaching situation solved one way or another, and then it's on to the quarterback situation, and that's going to take a whole offseason to get that figured out. But we'll be here every step of the way. Thank you very much.